Okay, we are live. A warm welcome to everyone that is tuning in today. It's the 14th edition of the Triall Community AMA. My name is Raymond van der Waal. I'm Head of Strategic Partnerships at Triall, and I'm joined by our Chief Executive, Hadil Espai, our Chief Technology, Niels Klomp, and our Chief Medical, Dr. Arno Bisschop.
Everyone.
Hi.
Hello.
We'd like to thank all of the community members who took the time to submit their questions using the Q&A portal. The quality of the questions has truly been impressive this time, and we'll try to answer a selection of these according to our best capacity. This month has been a special month as we shared several high-impact updates, including a roadmap update, a team expansion, and an upcoming prototype release for our newest product, the Clinical Insights Exchange. And today we really hope to give you a better understanding of what this exactly entails for both our company and our token. So let's dive right in. Niels, can you explain how the Triall's Clinical Insights Exchange will facilitate the exchange of research data and insights without compromising data privacy or confidentiality?
Sure. Can you hear me, by the way? Because I had some audio issues. So, okay.
Yes, we can.
Cool. Yeah, so first of all, there's multiple things that we are doing in terms of ensuring privacy. First of all is, of course, using the SSI technology, which I've explained in several AMAs already, but basically it means that whenever you're sharing data, either as a user, as an employee, as a physician, as a participant, or as an organization, you're only sharing the information which is really strictly needed and nothing more, and you will be in control every step of the way. Based on that, we then have the authentication and authorization, so the identity and access management, which is integrated with this SSI technology using the new OpenID standards, which we have implemented. And that also means that based upon certain criteria and credentials that you possess, either issued by your organization or issued by third parties, you will have access to certain parts of the CIX. And lastly, of course, what we are using is secure multi-party computation, which means that we are bringing algorithms, AI algorithms, but also other different types of algorithms actually to the data instead of copying data over from one organization to another organization. That automatically means that the data will not leave sort of the authoritative organization at any point in time, but only the outcome of any computation job will leave the premise. And of course, that really depends on what type of algorithm is being run and what type of data is being exchanged in the end. And of course, yeah, we have ways to ensure that you have to be compliant, for instance, and you have to go through a strict vetting process, for instance, to make sure that no other data is leaving any premise that's yeah, not wanted. Or so there's multiple ways how we solve this problem. I hope that answers your question.
Thanks, Niels. I think that was a concise answer, and I'd like to park the compliance aspect of the Clinical Insights Exchange for now, as we will address that in a follow-on question. I have another question, and this one is for Hadil. So Niels talked about the technical aspects of the Clinical Insights Exchange and how we plan to enable privacy-friendly data exchange between data consumers and data providers. But what are some of the specific data use cases that we aim to tackle?
Actually, that's a very good question. So the platform can be used to facilitate several use cases. For instance, the process of trial feasibility. That's a very important process, which basically informs how a study design would look like to ultimately, service the hypothesis of a specific clinical trial. In our case, we can use our platform to use the historical data, the historical study data, to inform future study designs. Also think about sample size calculations for a clinical trial. You do that, you have to do that in order to determine optimal patient cohort sizes. We also think that there's a very strong use case for the data to be used as so-called external control arms. And that basically means that we can synthesize a control group to reduce patient cohort size and thereby expose less patients to a specific investigational medicine. And at the same time, also speed up the timelines and reduce the cost. You may also think about the platform being able to support identification of new drug targets. There are a lot of other promising approaches that are out there, and I think that Triall can really complement those projects too. But I think bottom line, this data really offers a wealth of opportunities to get the most of existing data, improve study design and shorten the timelines, and thereby also lowering the costs.
Thank you, Adil. That brings me to the next question. And I think I'm going to hand this one over to you, Arno, because I know this is a topic that is dear to your heart. Enrolling patients for clinical research studies can be difficult, and this has led to failure of trials for lack of enough participants. How does Triall plan to incentivize and encourage clinical trial participation? Arno.
Thanks, Ray. Yeah, as you mentioned, well, great question. Very, very interesting question. And as you mentioned, this is dear to my heart as well, because it involves patients. So to start with, I think that if you look at patients involved in trials, then we can conclude that if you don't have patients, you won't have science. And if you won't have science, or if you don't have science, then you do not have progress in my field as a doctor as well. So what's also interesting about this question is that, to my knowledge, this is actually the first time that we can really incentivize patients to join clinical trials at a level that is, well, relevant and good for them. So I'm very interested in this progress. So these patients now are able to be incentivized by joining a clinical trial, and they can reuse the data as well. And I think that by this, we can get into a positive vicious circle to bring more patients in, to have better science, more progress, etc., etc. So I think this is really, really a good development in terms of progress in clinical trials.
Yeah, thank you, Arno. So just to also give a little bit of additional context there, I think two of the really main hallmarks of the clinical insights exchange are, on one hand, enabling reuse of clinical trial data. So enabling the reuse of clinical trial data to the end of the different data use cases, as explained by Adil. And on the other hand, really also being able to compensate patients for that data reuse. And again, this is exactly where self-sovereign identity, our own utility token Triall, and our blockchain backend come in. And I think that will provide a great bridge to the next question, which is, can you explain how Triall plans to implement token-based payment for access to clinical insights exchange data and computational resources using the Triall token? Well, I just like to emphasize again that Triall will really be the native currency of the clinical insights exchange, where we on one end will offer a pay-per-use model, meaning that in order to access a certain data set or a certain algorithm, the data consumer is required to consume Triall. So if someone wants to run an analysis on the clinical insights exchange, they would have to purchase Triall to access that data and access that algorithm. On the other side, so the data provider side and the data contributor side, the Triall token can really be used for benefit sharing and reimbursement. And this is highly interesting because that means that you can work towards a new type of ownership model where, for instance, a clinical trial sponsor is reimbursed, where a data contributor patient or a healthy volunteer is reimbursed, where an infrastructure provider such as Triall or an e-clinical vendor is reimbursed, meaning that all of these different parties get their share. Well, this is something that we really like to demonstrate as part of the upcoming prototype release as well, to really exemplify how that could work. Moving to the next question. So as those that are following us on our social media know, we have expanded our team with the newest addition, Arjan Groen, who has an expertise in machine learning and data science. And one of our community members asked how he will contribute to the design and the development of advanced AI analytics capabilities at Triall. Adil, would you like to answer that one?
Yeah, sure. So first of all, we're very happy and excited to have Arjan join the team. He's an experienced AI developer and data scientist. And I personally believe that data science within the management and oversight of clinical trials is going to take a very prominent role in the coming years ahead. So it's fantastic to have him already on board now. Arjan brings a very strong background in machine learning, data science, but also building of business intelligence tooling to the plate. And it's something that we've been looking for. So we're glad that we found it in Arjan. He's also a published author on computer-aided diagnosis, and he has previously developed different deep learning models for all kinds of radiology applications. Within our main focus, namely the building of the clinical insights exchange, Arjan is closely involved in building the platform and also ensure that we can become a platform for advanced analytics and thereby fully tap into the unique benefits as offered by AI.
Thank you, Adil. So I'd like to take a step back and focus a little bit more on the secure multi-party computation as addressed by Niels. I had one question from the community that asked specifically about our beta phase. So the question is as follows. What measures will be taken to ensure data quality and integrity across federated data sources and during the implementation of AI models and secure multi-party computation? Niels.
Oh, that's well, a really great question. Probably from someone who knows a little bit about it, I'm assuming. So first of all, I think what's really vital is the fact that we are using identities across the board. So not only for participants and employees and organizations, but we regard everything as having an identity. And that also means, for instance, the actual data sets as well as any potential algorithm that's being run on the CIX, which then automatically means that you are able to ensure that certain criteria are met for those identities. So whenever a data set has a certain identity, as the owner of that data, for instance, you would be able to require that a certain algorithm meets certain criteria and standards. And those standards could be something, of course, in which you are, for instance, requiring that a certain party has certain certifications in order to be able to actually run their algorithm on your data set, but also, for instance, that, let's say, a data impact assessment analysis has been done, or that some other form of vetting of the actual algorithm has been done. And the nice thing about it is, since we are using SSI and are using verifiable credentials, all of these vetting and how do you say it, sort of the certifications and stuff like that, they are what we are calling labels. It simply means that you would require certain labels to be present to run on your data. If someone doesn't meet those labels and doesn't possess those verifiable credentials, and when they are making available their computation on the CIX, they simply cannot provide that data then. And to be clear, Typically, of course, that vetting will be done externally, so not by the party themselves stating, oh no, look, we are really compliant, we are really ISO compliant, no, we've done a data impact assessment analysis. No, those are typically third parties that are doing that. And so then we would also like to see those actual third parties issued credentials to those actual organization that is providing the algorithm. So that already makes sure that it's not just you stating, hey, look, yeah, you really can trust me. No, it's also external organizations that have done the vetting. Then, of course, we are working on the data integrity. So you are not able, for instance, to swap out, let's say, algorithms underneath someone. So if you're stating, hey, look, this is what I'm presenting as an algorithm in the CIX, hey, look, it's fully vetted, then you're not able to just swap that out for a different algorithm altogether, because we are using integrity checks to make sure that that actually vetted algorithm still is the same algorithm running today. And of course, what we're also working on is standardization. And that is something for more the long run, of course, because you do want to make sure in the future, in this emerging field as well, that there's more standardization coming up to make sure that it's being able to be used across a wider board and a wider range of use cases as well. So hope that answers the question.
Yeah, I think it does. And I think one of the benefits of looking at historical clinical trial data is that it is quite often already standardized according to certain industry-specific standardizations. So that definitely helps in that regard. I like to, again, also cover the aspect of compliance very briefly, and I'm going to hand this one over to you, Adil. So I have a question regarding the regulatory landscape. How does Triall plan to navigate and comply with the regulatory landscape of the selected country, ensuring that the Clinical Insights Exchange aligns with local data protection and privacy regulations?
Well, that's an essential question in order to be successful. So I think if you look at the legacy that we have in managing more than 150 clinical trials over 30 plus countries in the past decade, then I think we're fairly well positioned to understand the complexity of regulatory and all kinds of quality standards as part of running successful clinical trials. So in that capacity, we're really tapping into our existing network of regulatory and quality and compliance experts who really help us to ensure that our technology meets all applicable regulatory and quality requirements. Secondly, a hallmark of a platform is that will allow auditing and certification of algorithms by third parties, just like Niels mentioned. In this case, meaning that customers can verify that an algorithm meets certain requirements. This can be, specific ISO standardization, for instance. It can also be all the kinds of local or country-specific or region-specific requirements.
Thanks, Adil. Okay, let's switch gears for a moment and focus a little bit more on the marketing and business development aspect of the Clinical Insights Exchange. So I have a question that I'll be happy to answer. What are the criteria for selecting marquee customers and strategic partners during the development of the Clinical Insights Exchange, and how will their involvement contribute to the beta and release version of the platform? Well, when looking for a clear strategic fit, we always try to consider how the fit will promote our go-to-market strategy. And we also consider whether it's actually a scalable fit. So in making strategic partnerships, I would distinguish between candidate customers, where we really try to see if they have an interest in the data that will be made available through the Clinical Insights Exchange and the data use cases, as previously explained by Adil. for the strategic partnership level partnerships, we really try to see if there's a technological or an expertise fit. So to give you a concrete example, we're currently talking with companies that are specialized in clinical trial modeling and simulation. We're talking to companies that can help us in the further build out of infrastructure. We are, of course, in a long-term partnership with Sverion, with whom we are collaborating on self-sovereign identity and a lot of the key capabilities of Triall's platform. So those are all aspects that we consider. I think one important other thing to mention is that the first release version of the platform should really be a minimum marketable product. So meaning that we want to release a product and at the time of product release already have one or more customers lined up that are actually willing to pay for the first version of that product. Jumping on to the next question, and I'm also looking at the time, considering we have about 5 minutes left. So I have another question for you, Arno. The Clinical Insights Exchange aims to foster collaboration between biopharma companies, clinicians, and patients. How will the platform ensure effective communication and coordination among these diverse stakeholders to maximize the value of shared research data?
Well, thanks, Ray. Again, another great question, I guess. And obviously, communication is at the heart of good collaboration. And I think it's important here to emphasize that there's already lots of communication going on because we truly focus on e-clinical providers, and these e-clinical providers, they have strong ties to sponsors. So that includes the big pharma parties, etc. So there's already strong connections there. And I think it's also important to emphasize that our SIX, our Clinical Insight Exchange, will not only be a data marketplace, but also a services marketplace. So that enables, make sure that there is communication involved. And I think that if you look to the future, there will also be, I guess, I'm sure of there will also be a very important role for AI to create value for the SIX as well. So hopefully that answers your question, Ray.
Yeah, I think it does. I think one of the key takeaways here is really we're not only offering data and algorithms, but this really coincides with related services. It can be in the context of artificial intelligence, in the context of certification, as just explained by Niels and Hadil. And I think that really underlines the multi-sided aspects of the platform that we're building. So we are offering a platform for all of these different stakeholders, and these different stakeholders will have varying types of collaborations in between each other. And in that sense, we really try to tap into these unique network effects, and in that way also build up critical mass, because in order to build and release a successful Clinical Insights Exchange, any type of successful marketplace, you do need that critical mass. I think I'm gonna move over to the last question for today. And I'd like to give this one to you, Hadil, as it specifically concerns you. Can you provide insights into the topics or presentations that Triall CEO Hadil will be hosting at DIA 2023? And how will they align with Triall's mission and vision?
Yeah, so we're very excited and looking forward to attend the DIA meeting in Boston, end of June. So for those who are not familiar with that meeting, it's a premier biopharma event where there's a lot of regulatory and quality and compliance experts from governments, but also from the industry. I've been there a few times already, and it's also very interesting to see the latest and greatest when it comes to regulatory and quality and compliance thoughts or guidance. The presentations will in general focus on informing and educating and generating excitement about our tech stack. I think one of our topics is really to take away some of the myths that are maybe still associated with blockchain, and to really show them the true potential it can have, in solving some of these persistent problems that we've been seeing in the past few years. So our key focus will really be to demonstrate our thought leadership position, to make sure that people know about Triall and the Triall project, and also to engage in strategic partnerships with groups or people that we can learn from on the other hand, but also potential customers and other stakeholders on the other hand. So very much looking forward to it, and we're currently fully preparing towards a successful meeting.
Thank you, Adil. Well, that has brought us to the end of this AMA. We will have another AMA by the end of June. And I think then the community will be curious to learn about all of your experiences and meetings at DIA and some of the other events that we're joining in June. It's going to be a busy month for Triall, as we also just announced the upcoming prototype release of the Clinical Insights Exchange. So I'm sure there will be much to talk about in our next session. If we were not able to answer your question, and it's a very pressing one, please drop us a line in the Telegram community, and we'd be happy to cater to your question through that means. So thank you to all who tuned in, and see you in the next session.
Right.
Thanks
Thanks,
all.
Ray. Great session.